AITA for using my BF's last name, even though we're not yet married. I've created a throwaway because I usually lurk here but don't have a main Reddit account. This is not a big dramatic situation, but I'm curious about what people will think since this has really divided people in my life. I, 30F, work as a copywriter in a fairly competitive field. I write in English even though I'm not an English native, but I have been working in this field and in English for over 6 years. Now, a couple of years ago I was looking for a new job and having difficulty getting interviews. After some time, I realized it may have been because my last name is very typical of my country, think Martinez or similar, and people were screening me assuming my English level. To A/B test this theory, I asked my boyfriend, who is white and English native, if I could use his last name to apply for jobs. I didn't see it as a big deal as we're planning on getting married and me taking his last name anyway. To be clear, other than the name on the CV, I made no claims to be an actual English native, just native level, and I'm always honest about my background in interviews. Well, guess what? It worked. I got my current job based on that CV, and now use his last name on LinkedIn and all professional channels. Recently, I shared this story with a white, English native friend of mine and they were extremely offended. Firstly, they accused me of denying my culture, birth country, and trying to be white. Then they said I was lying to companies and misrepresenting myself, and that I could be stealing this job from more deserving people. He even implied that he would go to my current company and reveal my secret, which is ridiculous as I've provided my ID to them, so they know that this is not my official name. I was taken aback at how seriously angry he got at this, and I wanted to know, am I the asshole for using my BF's last name professionally? NTA. As a black man with a misspelled French last name and fluent in code switching, I've lost count of the times I walked into an interview and they clearly were expecting anything but an NFL linebacker in front of them. NTA. /T. Stealing this job from more deserving people, because someone might have been chosen over you for having a more nationally typical last name. The only way I can make sense of that is if your friend is an open racist, who thinks people deserve jobs based on their national/ethnic/cultural background. From my American perspective, while such hiring discrimination is extremely common, it's relatively rare for someone to openly argue that it's unethical not to encourage such discrimination. That places your friend firmly in the asshole category. I'm surprised you still refer to them as your friend. That should be a quick ticket to former friend status. He was upset because he feels like I'm misrepresenting myself to scam companies. This whole discussion came about because he was joking that he should make himself look more ethnic so he could benefit from positive action, and I took it seriously and offered my story as an example of how the opposite is actually much more realistic. To be honest, I used the word friend but should have said co-worker. I have beers with in group settings lol. NTA. Sure, the change in last name might have gotten them to look at your CV a bit closer, but your achievements and experience don't lie. You got the job on your own merit, and for him to suggest that you are taking this job away from someone more deserving that actually does have a white last name is problematic and racist in itself. Yeah, the more deserving comment made me side-eye this guy a bit. Clearly in this context that more deserving candidate would be someone with a typically white name, and if that's not full-blown racism, it's at least a giant wink at it. NTA. I think your friend should be more concerned the obvious hidden racism/bias going on here, that you were experiencing. There's studies that confirm your exact situation, that using a less foreign-sounding name results in more job responses. I wonder if this friend would have the same reaction if you changed your name after marriage. This is a very over-the-top reaction, honestly, over a last name. AITA for giving the entire inheritance to my twin brother. Am I the asshole for leaving my inheritance to only one sibling? So I, 30F, made money young. I dropped out of college to model, then started my own business and made some smart decisions with stocks. So I have quite a bit of money saved, my own property owned free and clear, just pay utilities, and a couple cars. I am single and childless. Growing up, I was very close with my twin, 30M, but not so much with my other siblings, also twins, 28F. Basically they were favored quite a bit by my parents. I took care of myself starting in high school and so did my twin. He paid his own way through college with no parental help while I built my business also on my own. Our younger siblings did not. Our parents bought them cars in high school, paid 100% of their tuition and living expenses in college, and supported them in starting their adults' lives. Both my sisters ended up in bad relationships where they had kids that the fathers eventually had nothing to do with. My parents have always given them plenty of money and support. I just got diagnosed with a terminal brain tumor. It's inoperable and I am going to die within 6 months. I have made my peace with it. I opted to leave everything to my brother in my will. That was he can pay off his student loans and have a vehicle and home free and clear. I want to know he has a good life while I'm gone. My parents and sisters found out that I'm leaving everything to him and flipped out. They accused me of favoritism and being a bad daughter, aunt, and sister. They said my parents deserved money for raising me, and that my nieces and nephews deserved my money for future expenses since their mothers couldn't afford things like cars and college. Even my grandma and my uncle's wife, who I barely see, messaged me on Facebook to tell me how selfish I'm being. I blocked all of them in Facebook and told my brother I only wanted him to be at my bedside while I died. AITA for giving my inheritance solely to my brother, and for cutting my family off. NTA, you built everything from the ground up, and it sounds like you have a much closer relationship with your brother. I would advise that you leave the rest of your family a small amount, because if they are left out entirely they could have the option of claiming you forgot to include them and go to court for it. But you should speak with a lawyer or legal advisor about this, because I'm neither of those things. NTA. I am not a lawyer. I had this experience when my Phil died from an aggressive cancer. Once the diagnosis was known to my husband's family, it was quite astonishing to find all these long-lost relatives, including 2 ex-wives that were anxious to remind him/my husband of certain property, assets, money for college, etc. that was supposedly promised to them. Phil was a very wealthy, frugal person. Phil nominally left $1 to all the aforementioned as suggested by his attorney to stave off any potential challenges against his estate in the courts. It was quite an impressive document, 13 pages and ultimately airtight. It seemed to do the trick. After some initial gripping and of course the obligatory name calling, they all faded away. NTA. It's your money. I'd go over with the inheritance lawyer to close any loopholes that the family could take. Make sure you tell him not to let family members coax or scam him into giving them dollar. Example, pretending to love him/be friends after his death because he got dollar. NTA. It's your money, your choice. Your brother may decide to help out your nieces, but that's his choice and not theirs. I would talk with your brother though, because I'd be worried your family will try and gaslight him into giving them a portion of the inheritance. I hope, for your sake, this can be sorted out and you can get some peace. Edit. I'd leave them each $1 so they can't contest the will. NTA. But maybe see a solicitor to make sure your will is incontestable. You don't want your poor brother trying to mourn you while a bunch of vultures steal everything not nailed down or specified in the will. I am sorry for your situation and I hope that you have only the people who love you around for your remaining time. I just want to tack on this comment to make sure it's documented that you were of sound mind when you made your will. My family contested a will by saying our relative with brain cancer wasn't capable of making big decisions. They said my family member's brain tumor was affecting their ability to make decisions. NTA. AITA for ditching my mentally ill friend at a gas station. So around this time last year, me and a group of 3 friends had spent 6 months planning a road trip across the country, and we had just left. Of the 4 of us, 3 were having a great time. One of our friends is very irritable, and says she has depression, anxiety, PTSD and borderline personality disorder despite having never gone to a therapist or psychiatrist. She thinks psychiatry and therapy are shams. Initially, we didn't want to invite her, but she tends to get very upset when she gets left out. Before we left, we explained to her that we were not going to spend 3 weeks putting up with her outbursts and she needed to control them so we could all have fun. She made a fuss about it but eventually agreed. 2 days in and a few hundred miles from home, we had all come close to losing our minds. Our one friend was nitpicking and yelling at everyone for everything, from the clothes we wore out in public because we were embarrassing her, eating or drinking water too loudly, all the way down to 2 different conversations going on at the same time because it was too much noise for her. She was the only one on the O and refused to let anyone else have a turn, would smoke cigarettes in the RV no matter how many times I told her to wait until we pulled over, etc. Told her she needed to keep her promise that she wouldn't be a pain so that we could just have fun, but she kept insisting that she wasn't being rude and kept bringing up her self-diagnosed mental illnesses. The 2 other friends and I decided we were sick of it, so we stopped at a gas station, and when she went inside to buy more cigarettes, we sped off. I cashed her $220 so she could get a hotel and maybe an Uber back home, and then blocked her. She blew up my friends' phones with threats and insults until we all blocked her and enjoyed the rest of the trip. Her mom ended up driving to her and bringing her back home after she stayed the night at a hotel. The reason I might be TA is because she said if we had warned her she would be ditched if she didn't calm down. She would have acted better. At the same time though, if extortion could have brought decency out of her, then she was capable of it all along, right? AITA? Edit, my bad, I forgot to specify, I was 17 at the time, she was 21, and my other 2 friends are 20 and 22. Edit 2. The gas station we dropped her off at was in Florence, Arizona at around 1 p.m. It was on a street with a grocery store and 2 motels. Edit 3, I forgot to mention, my 22-year-old friend, owner of the RV, had told her we were going to drop her off back at home, but she said she'd start breaking things if we headed back home, so we made a plan to ditch her. Final edit. For those who are wondering, we set her luggage by the door of the gas station before we left. Sorry if I don't respond, this post blew up way bigger than I expected. I'm sorry but you are. Totally sympathize with you, and you were in the right up until you sped away. I guess telling her to her face was impossible. Very cowardly of you. NTA, although verging on ESH because of, we explained to her that we were not going to spend 3 weeks putting up with her outbursts and she needed to control them so we could all have fun. He made a fuss about it but eventually agreed. What did you think was going to happen? It's pretty much your own fault.